Hey guys, it's Will here, and tonight I'm joined by Sam.
Right guys, we're the wrong way round, I just realised
We're the wrong way around tonight, but that's because of how we're mic'd up. So yeah, the mic on my camera isn't working, so I've had to plug a secondary mic in, but because it's only one mic and there's two of us, you can see it's wired to my shoulder.
My idea.
Yeah, his idea, and it works actually. The sound quality on this is pretty good. But anyway, enough about the mic. This is what you want to see.
I'll take that because you can't move your right shoulder.
Yay! Yay! This is the new 40k rulebook. We have it in our hands. Both got our own copy of it, and we've got plenty of indexes as well to keep us busy.
Yeah, plenty. Yeah, this is just going to be a brief overview of what we think of the game going into 8th.
Yep.
And some of our own experiences and where some of the factions might be going.
Yeah, exactly. And talk a little bit about the book, but mostly this is going to be about the rules. Obviously there is a large chunk of fluff at the start of the rules. More than half the book is the lore and the background. From the looks of it, a lot of it's to experienced players is going to be pretty stuff
Rehashed.
we're familiar with. I don't like to say rehashed because it's
It'll be new and improved.
it'll be new and improved.
But I'm definitely looking forward to reading the fluff on how Gilliman's been doing and what he's been up to. 'Cause it's meant to be set like 150 years after his rise.
Okay, yeah.
So
I still need to finish reading Rise of the Primarch at this point.
yeah.
But yeah, and obviously you've got the new stuff about the Primaris Marines. There is some progression in the fluff properly for the first time in 30 years. So yeah, this is good. But yeah, so far we've had the opportunity to play a few games with it. You may have seen the bat rep we put up a few days ago, and we've got another bat rep coming soon. I've also managed to blag another quick game tonight. So yeah, we've got a little bit of experience with it. Sam, what's your initial thoughts?
I'm really liking it. I mean, it's new enough that we're making rules mistakes. So there's stuff to learn and there's progression to be had, which is really nice. Like, it's not just rehashed, oh, this is the same game with a few extra tweaks. No, this is a new game,
Yeah.
but it still feels the same. The same game we've been playing for the last 12 years.
Yeah, it's the same game, yet totally refreshed. I mean, you move, you shoot, you roll to hit, you roll to wound, you roll to save, and remove models, hopefully.
It's uncomfortable.
No, it's not uncomfortable, it just feels like the mic's about to fall off, but it's not. I think you're all right there.
Just tweak you there.
Oh, hang on, there we go. Yep, that's fine. So the mic is going to stay on tonight. Planning to make this about 40 minutes, so this better stay on.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Obviously the biggest change from where I'm sitting is the vehicles. If you've seen enough of our bat reps, you know I run a lot of vehicles.
Yeah.
Mechanised orcs, fully mechanised marines, semi-mechanised Eldar, and yeah, they're all different.
I say I'm certainly happy to see armour values go. I know some people really hated the armour values because it seemed to be chop and changey. What was a monster? What was a vehicle? What was a walker?
Yeah, I mean, when the current armour or the previous armour value system really came out at the start of third, when they started having armour values
Was it
like
third or fourth they started having
third.
You sure?
Yes, I have the third edition rulebook, I remember it. But the
Yeah.
armour values back like how they were at the end of 7th have really been the same since third. And back then there were very few units that straddled is it a monster, is it a vehicle thing. Now there's so many more, particularly in the Tau and the Eldar. Like a Wraith Knight, why is a Wraith Knight a monster yet Imperial Knight is a vehicle?
Yeah.
And now there's none of that. You know, it's I mean, I think they still have monster or vehicle, but in terms of they both have a toughness value, they both have a save.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly liking the fact that things have got tougher in their own right. An orc truck is... Ah, there it goes!
No, it's still on, it's still on.
No, you need to lose some weight, boy.
Yes, I know I need to lose some weight, but it's easier said than done, trust me.
Hey, I've lost half a stone this week.
Excellent, good for you.
Slightly less tubby, that means I've got more room for chocolate.
I've lost several pounds this week, but enough about what my wife's done with my credit cards.
Yes, where were we?
Well, with vehicles.
Vehicles, yes. Like an orc truck, taking, for an example, is the one I've seen most of, and read, well, I say most of, I've seen rhinos as well.
You've seen rhinos and trucks because you've played me.
And you look at it and you go, wow, that's a lot more resilient. I used to look at a storm surge and go, 8 wounds with a 3 up save, 4 up invuln. That's really hard to get through. Well, now a truck has that same sort of stat, 10 wounds.
Decent armour save. Obviously, it's not as survivable as, say, a storm surge used to be because you've got multiple wound weapons now. I'll tell you, one thing I've noticed is las cannons.
Yeah, las cannons are brutal.
Okay, that's gonna... Let's try it. No,
let's just hold it.
Let's just hold it, yeah, right.
There
That's
we go.
better. We'll take it in turns to hold the mic, yeah. So, las cannons with D6 wounds now, they can really start putting some holes in vehicles that previously las cannons just tended to bounce off vehicles and not really do a lot.
Well, I found las cannons like really ineffective against monsters before. You know, you might do 1 or 2 wounds when a monster has 6 or 7.
Yeah, and
now you're
doing D6 wounds off, say, a 10, 12 wound
Yeah,
monster.
I mean, a quad las cannon predator with the sponsored las cannon and the turret
twin one, yeah,
can take out card effects in one shooting phase.
Yeah, it does need some good rolls to do that, but it can certainly do it. And if you've got something else to plink off those last few wounds.
Yeah.
And although the everything can hurt everything, doesn't hurt vehicles as much as you initially think because they've got armour saves as well as toughness values, it can take a huge amount of small arms fire to even take the odd wound off a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, with the toughness, the wound chart changing, higher toughness is easier to wound, so strength 3 guns are more deadly than ever.
But at the same time, everything that is meant to be tough for them to wound has got multiple wounds, and vehicles have an armour save. I mean, Land Raider now has a 2+ save.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. There's things like... Yeah, I've got it.
You got it, cool.
I just wanted to rotate it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like a Land Raider, 2+ save, but toughness 8.
Toughness 8, yeah.
So, like, a strength 4 gun still wounds you on 6s, but a strength 5 and above, so a heavy bolt will wounds you on 5s. So you will find more wounds from stuff now.
Yeah, you'll be getting more wounds, but you'll be getting more saves as well. And I like the way the cover's working as well. Just thinking on the subject of saves, with +1 save to cover, tactical squads in cover really hard to shift now unless you've got proper armour piercing gear.
Yeah, I say. Terrain is the one thing I think where the additions have had a big change around. A lot of people are struggling to get their heads around it, but I think looking at it theoretically doesn't work massively well. It's when you get into game and you go, okay, this terrain feature looks like this is how it's practically going to work.
Yeah, the problem is that the terrain features that everybody's got in their collection, the local gaming clubs have all got, are all going to be very different. Obviously GW have written these rules with their terrain in mind that their stores use, but like the trees here at 40k Gaming, which is a great place to game, and I don't work for them, I just, I genuinely think that they're very different to the trees that are on like the Citadel Woods type thing, where they're generally, we have them compacted together, where the Citadel Woods is very spread out, which is like, well, yeah, infantry can obviously move across the Citadel Woods, but how does that work with a close clump of trees? We haven't really got an answer to that yet, but it's certainly one to discuss going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that they brought out the battlefield terrain rules, but I think they could be a little bit more in depth.
Yeah,
I would say.
Going to need some clarification, I think. And if a lot of people feel this way, from what I've seen of GW lately, they will actually clarify that. They've talked about wanting to actively change the rules in response, or clarify the rules, FAQ them, in response to how they're received. This isn't the old GW that took 5 years to produce an FAQ. This is a GW that's actively trying to use social media and respond to its customers.
I mean, another thing with the terrain is obscured is still a thing if you're a vehicle, so if you're obscured by a ruin and stuff, but doesn't bring intervening models into it. So what happens when I'm 50% obscured behind a tank? It's only like specific things like the ruins and I think barricades for infantry and obstacles and stuff. But it does seem like infantry have a lot more mobility when it comes to moving through terrain, where monsters and vehicles have a higher speed, so they can get round if
yeah,
that
they
is
can
the
go
case.
around it. I mean, yeah, vehicles can be really quick now. And although a Razorback, for example, has always been able to move 12 inches, you very rarely actually did it because you couldn't fire, well, snap firing. Now you're only -1 to hit, and with the, say, the heavy bolter on there, which was always the standard basic armament, becoming 2 heavy bolters rather than the twin linked heavy bolter, you now find, yeah, I can move that 12, and I'm still chucking out 6 shots hitting on a 4+, I'll still get 3 hits on average.
Yeah, I mean, moving and firing with heavy weapons got better in some respect for some models, but other models which used to be like steady platforms, i.e. vehicles, have technically got worse, but at the same time you're not snap firing anymore, so you're still slightly better off, I would say.
Yeah, so a Razorback moving 6 is worse off in this edition than a Razorback moving 6 in the previous edition, but a Razorback moving 12 in this edition is much better off than a Razorback moving 12 in the previous edition, and only the really heavy stuff is completely immune to the move and fire with heavy weapons. So we're thinking Land Raiders, Battle Wagons, and Centurions are the 3 that come to mind from what I've played. But I'm sure there's Venoms, and I think
Venom's got changed. They're now rapid fire.
Oh, they're oh, of course, yeah. The heavy Venom
Splinter
cannon is now a rapid fire weapon, which is interesting. Rapid fire is quite fun now because it's not just straight up you fire 1 shot or 2 shots. You now have a rapid fire value and you double it in half range.
Yeah, I say that's got to be one of the big changes as well, as how the weapons react now to their keywords. So rapid fire obviously is double shots at half range. Assault you can advance, which is run.
Yep.
And still shoot at the -1 BS, which is really nice. Gives everyone a version of battle focus.
Yep.
Again, making infantry really viable.
There's a lot of manoeuvrability seems to be a real key in this game. You don't lose a lot for moving a lot of the time.
And I'm finding that's the way I prefer to play the game. I prefer an active game rather than a sit back and shoot and do your thing until the last turn where you jump onto the objectives all of a sudden.
Absolutely, yeah, you get a lot more moving, and I think it's being played more aggressively from what I've seen, which I think suits me because I don't want a gun line. I mean, a gun line, there's very little tactics. You basically just sit back and fire all your guns at the obvious target until it's gone or you get hit in combat. Now you have to move a lot more to really make the most of it.
I mean, we generally play Maelstrom, and I'm really glad they kept the Maelstrom.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have complained if they'd mixed up like Eternal War and Maelstrom into a game type where you've got end game objectives plus progressive.
Yeah, that would have been quite cool. It's a shame they didn't do that, to be honest. But what you have still got is all the classics. 'Cause, I mean, the missions weren't bad in 40k anyway. That was not something that needed fixing. There was obviously things that you could have done to make it more fun, but you know, I think we're still going to have a great many missions. And the missions were only 3 years old. You know, they weren't that old. And you've got new stuff in here. If you're looking for a new challenge, there are these other missions that they've brought in that aren't really designed so much for competitive play. See, competitive play is matched play. It's very much this is what you do, this is how we do it. But they've really kind of canonised the more narrative side of things.
I also think, looking at a competitive side of things like the ITC and the ETC won't have too much effort to port their existing systems into the new edition, which is really nice. So, you know, people like Frontline Gaming can hopefully port over their mechanics and their Maelstrom style missions with a little tweak or two.
To be honest, I'm surprised that not more of Frontline Gaming's mechanics got ported into the rules, considering they were the playtesters.
Yeah, well, I say the guys from Frontline Gaming really know what they're doing, and they are. They sound like good guys, and
yeah.
I would like to meet and play in their tournaments. So
they're in America, aren't they?
I believe so, but the ITC goes worldwide.
Yeah, or hence the I, international.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, so that's a trick because there's a rather large Atlantic Ocean in the way, but
That's what planes are for.
true. But if I ever get on a plane, my wife ensures it's going to somewhere sunny and she's with me.
Yeah, that's the problem. Don't ever get married if you want to play war games.
Hey, I manage. I get to game every week. I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, unless they've all just left, and I still get to paint. I manage all right.
Yeah, just about. She only lets him out once a week.
Hey, I've been out twice this week. That's not fair.
Oh, biggie.
Oh.
Breaking boundaries.
Breaking curfew almost.
But yes, so we've covered vehicles slightly, like the weapon changes.
Yeah.
Is
And I think on the whole, just on that, vehicles in general are much more survivable now. A Rhino is no longer a disposable tin can.
nice. You actually want to take it for a designed purpose rather than. I mean, having a walking infantry unit is not a bad thing, I would say now, considering the price of most vehicles now.
Yeah, vehicles got more expensive in general, whereas infantry often went down. And tactical squads are the classic example because everyone knows that. They've dropped another point per model.
Well, you say tactical squads went down in price, but all the weapons you upgraded them with went up in points. A melter gun went from 10 to 17.
True, a flamer went from 5 to 9, but the basic dudes got cheaper, and they can make use of cover better. They're faster through cover for a start because there's no more like roll 2d6 to move through ruins and stuff. So they got faster. The vehicles got more expensive. So you really want to keep your vehicles now. For the units, you really want to be really pushing forward and getting into assaults.
Yeah, I think vehicles is the other big change. Transport, yeah, that's massive now. Like Berserker Rush in Rhinos is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's going to affect your Orc cult speed. I'm definitely looking forward to getting my Orcs out. I'm definitely going to get my Big Mech working on some killer cans because
it actually
killer cans
slows
are a thing.
cult of speed because you have to disembark before you move.
Yes, but with a disembark you also get 3 inches to your move. So an Orc boy will go 8 inches out of the transport.
Which is certainly decent, and then he can re-roll his charge. But the units I'm thinking are really going to be good. There's units that that really benefit, at least things like Eldar, Space Marines, and Chaos. So they have some good combat units, but have trouble getting them into assault unless they've got jetpacks or something. Because you could never really assault out of anything other than a Land Raider. Now you can drive your Rhino up 12 plus D6 on the first turn. Chances are it'll survive, but if it doesn't, getting blown up as a vehicle isn't terrible.
It's like dangerous terrain, so on a 1 you take a mortal wound, I believe it is.
Yeah, no, 1 you're slain, so if you've got multiple wound models in there, they can be hurt by it. But most of the units I'm thinking are things like Khorne Berserkers, Honor Guard...
Howling Banshees. Oh my god, Howling Banshees could be a thing.
Howling Banshees could well be back, especially as the power weapons are straight -3 to save, so Terminators are going on to their invuln.
And here's the thing, can you put Howling Banshee in a Raider again?
I don't know, I haven't checked. I only got my hands on the Xenos book and the rulebook very recently, so I haven't been checking that because I was prepping for my games with my Marines, so I've really been looking at the Marines to start with just because that's what I've been playing.
I guess it's a moot point now anyway because you can assault out of it.
Yeah, I'd rather have them in a Wave Serpent because the Wave Serpent can move up 12 or more possibly, probably like 16 for a Wave Serpent. And because, yeah, it's going to survive, it's a Wave Serpent, it's a really survivable tank.
I mean, as much as I think all elves should die in a hole and very slowly and painfully, it would be nice to see Banshees on the board, all the aspects coming out. You'll be able to turn with all the aspects, it'd be a nice army to see.
Yeah, and I think Banshees are certainly an addition I'd be looking at getting. The problem is there's so many things I want to get now.
Yeah, even I've done that. I went, it'll be fine. I'll just get all my old models out that I haven't used. Ooh, new stuff.
Yeah, it's all stuff that you've wanted to try for years that you can finally do. Like, I used a Whirlwind today and it did work.
A Whirlwind actually making its points, although a Whirlwind probably went up like nearly to 100
points. It probably did, but it actually did something. So, that's worth it.
That's one thing that we haven't covered is power level versus points.
Yes.
I prefer the points.
Yes, absolutely. So there's 2 ways, if you haven't read, of picking your army to have points. power level, which is listed on all the unit entries, is meant to be more of an overall roughly how good it is type of thing, more intended for narrative play. And then you got the true points as we would know them, which if anything got more complicated and more granular.
Yeah, well, a lot of your stock weapons will be 0 points, so though it got more complicated, the more familiar you get with the book, you'll just realise, oh, my bolt gun doesn't cost anything, I've got that.
Yeah, absolutely. And once people like Quartermaster catch up with it and you start getting Quartermaster updates for this edition, you won't even think about it, because I do all my lists on Quartermaster, really.
Yeah, I never trust an app. I always prefer to get my hands on a piece of paper and read it. So
yeah, I sometimes don't have access to a piece of paper when I'm trying to pretend to work and I'm not, and actually fiddling on my phone. Just to clarify, if my boss is watching, I don't do that at all, honest.
Yeah, but yeah, with the power level thing, I think if you were to play power levels, it's a good way to intro the game, your first handful of games, power level. But if you're going to power level, keep your upgrades to a minimum, use what's on your data sheet, just to keep it balanced, because you could go, oh well, I'm allowed all my upgrades, I'll give all my hormiguns to toxin sacs and adrenal glands for free.
Yeah, and like a tactical squad with a flamer, a heavy bolter and a chainsword costs the same power points as a tactical squad with a power fist, a plasma cannon and a melter gun. You can really start stacking on the upgrades. Like, oh yeah, I'll stick all the hunter killer missiles on my vehicles, and yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd personally say go granular, but if you're coming into the game, power levels is a good way to start.
Or if you're having a game where you really haven't got time to sit down and work out a list, it's only meant to be a casual game anyway, then yeah, just throw it in. But it's a nice quick way to do it. But if you're playing anything that wants to be remotely competitive, you need to go those granular points.
Yeah. And I mean, most factions with the granular points got more expensive in general, I would say. My majority of my general 1750 lists went up to about 2k. I don't know about you.
Some of the units I tend to spam doubled in points. Rhinos, Orc trucks really went up in points. Yeah, Land Raiders are now well over 300 when they're decked out properly.
But Land Raider might actually be a viable option, considering D's gone and Grav is no longer so detrimental to vehicles.
This is true. Grav weapons are not dead, but they are a little more balanced now. If anything, against certain targets they're better, and against other targets they're not as good, but they're still pretty good.
Which is how they should be. I mean, I'm finding the game between factions to be very brought back to ground level. That's one thing I'm really liking with this edition. It's got rid of all the I need 15 books for this, and brought it all back to ground level. And I find, from what I've been reading, it's balanced the armies relatively.
It seems so. I think there's not sort of so many clear-cut yes and clear-cut no choices in a book anymore.
I mean, me and Rob have just been looking at his Tau, going through it, and we're discovering suddenly his Tau are way, way more expensive. So a Tyrannies versus Tau battle report is not a foregone conclusion, because Tyrannies is one of the few factions to go down in points
significantly in some cases. I'm finding when I'm going up against Nids, there's so many more of the critters on the table.
Yeah, that's also deviating from the factions. Go back to the rulebook.
Yeah.
Objectives wise, Maelstrom's still a thing. I mean, we prefer Maelstrom. I know some people prefer Eternal because they don't like the randomness and don't find randomness competitive. One thing I would have liked them to do with the Maelstrom is get rid of D3s.
Yeah, it's a shame they didn't do that. I'd rather see the D3s turned into flat twos, or a kind of a thing where at the end of the game, if you've got more D3s than your opponent, that's when you get like D6 or something.
Yeah, I mean, there is a thing of, in one of the game types, tactical escalation, where you pick a card type, and if you've got more of that card type scored than your opponent, you get a victory point.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. I haven't had a chance to read all of this yet, but that sounds nice. And there are these new, stratagems.
Stratagems are massive. I don't think they're overly game changing, although when you can use them and how many you can use is a thing.
if they're deployed absolutely just right, with a little bit of luck at the right time, they can be really devastating, especially if your opponent's not braced for it.
Yeah.
If you see the bat rep we put up our first game, I charged my Orc knobs and a few other units in. I thought, well, I'll do the other units first because the knobs are going to get to hit first anyway because they're charged, so I might as well just resolve them in any old order. And then Sam pulled off a countercharge stratagem, and yeah, his Gene Stealers pretty much butchered my knobs in a single swing.
Yeah, now our second game, we were much more clued in on the stratagems, and we had some units that had always strike first style abilities, so which it made the charge phase and the always strike first phase, and then the back and forth phase.
Yeah.
Like there's 3 levels to combat, and you've got to think, well, if I charge in, I've got to strike with that unit first. What if he pulls a stratagem and goes with the unit and kills the unit I really want to fight with?
Yeah. So, it's kind of, combat is almost so, any units that have an always strike first ability, like Howling Banshees, stuff that's been hit with Veil of Time.
Anything Demon of Sinesh.
Yeah, that all goes first. Then the first charging unit hits, and then your opponent can decide to interrupt your turn for stratagem, or you carry on with your charges, and then you're back and forth. So it's a bit of a new tactic to that.
Yeah,
it's a simpler rule.
Definitely dynamic to combat now. I mean, the rules in general, yes, they're simpler, but the dynamic, like Sigmar, in a way, because the rules are 4 pages, but the dynamic is huge.
Yeah, it does feel like they kind of use Sigmar as a test bed for some of their ideas, and then the stuff that worked well has been put into here and ported over to 40k, and some of the stuff that people hated in Sigmar, like completely deleting whole factions and scrapping points and not having competitive missions from the word go, they've not done that. But the things that have actually been quite good with Sigmar have stayed in.
Yeah. I'm definitely liking the fact that they ported the psychic powers to match Sigmar. I hated the 4+ warp charge system. I found it very unreliable, and with the 2d6 system, it's more accountable.
And as someone who doesn't play a lot of psychers, but occasionally has 1 or 2 lurking around, with an opponent who loves bringing way too many psychers because he plays demons, sometimes demons of Zinch.
I like my demons of Zinch.
It's like the old system of dispelling was like, well, unless I have masses of stuff and throw it into one big deny the witch attempt, it just didn't do anything. Now you've actually got, if you've got a psyche, you've got a reasonable chance to deny.
Although I am finding with the indexes the way they are, this will probably change as they release codexes, but each faction only has access to about 3 psychic powers and smite. Now, smite you can cast as much as you want, but in match play you can only ever cast a psychic power once. So if you've got 15 psychics in your list, like Grey Knights or Zinch Demons, you've got you can attempt to cast the 3 powers once, and then smite. So I'm not like, I think psychic heavy armies have been really hit hard by that factor, but also at the same time I think that will remedy when the codexes come around.
Yes, I think as we saw with the previous edition, you had the stock powers in the book, and then the number of powers gradually crept up. And a good analogy for those of us old enough to remember is when 3rd edition came out, you literally had one psychic power per psyker most of the time. Like a Space Marine Librarian only knew Smite, which back then was a pretty lame shooting attack, to be honest. And then as the editions rolled on, you got more and more powers, and I think you will get that. Like, I can certainly see getting like 6 powers. And the same with Sigmar. When Sigmar first came out, there was like 2 spells, and then occasionally you had another one on your profile. Now, Sigmar guys that have got their proper battle tomes, like my Stormcast now have 6 prayers to choose from.
Yeah, my Zinch ones have at least, they've got 3 lists with 6 powers on.
So yeah, there's a lot more. And that's the thing, they've managed to cram all the rules for all the models so you can get going using them now in a reasonable way into the indexes, which are only 4 books, and they are jam-packed with information. but over time they are going to be replaced. We are going to get codexes. They've already talked about codexes in the rulebook. They are definitely coming. I wouldn't be surprised if the one for Primaris Marines is here before August, because they've already leaked a load of Primaris units.
Yeah, well, I heard I was talking to a Games Workshop staff member, and he said they were going to do them on like 3 weekly basis, codexes.
3 weekly?
Yeah.
That's going to get expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you might be a while waiting for your faction to come round, but they've got 20 factions, so if they do it over 60 weeks, that's over a year.
Yeah, that isn't so bad, but the way I'm thinking is I've got a lot of my factions very common. I have 5 factions that I play, and at least 3 of them would be considered really classic factions: Space Marines, Eldar and Orcs. And so I could be looking at having to replace all those codexes pretty quickly, as well as having just bought the indexes, which is a bit...
Well, that's also one thing. I mean, in the UK, the indexes are only £15. I imagine that's the same in Europe, and not far off in America and the States.
Yeah, well,
so.
I say at the current exchange rate of the pound, they're probably about $15 and 15 euros.
Yeah. I'd say a friend going abroad got $1 for £1 today. So.
Oh, don't you just love Brexit? Anyway, I'm not going to get political. I will not get political on my channel.
No. Let's go all eat bacon and be happy.
Yes, eat bacon and be happy.
Unless you're a vegetarian, and then fake bacon.
Anyway,
back to said rules.
Back to 40k, yes.
The Maelstrom cards.
They changed.
Yeah, we've got a few new ones, like so 11 to 16 and 21 to 26 are still secure objective X, but they changed 31 to 36 to hold it for 2 turns for 2 points.
Yeah.
Which is a set number. It's what we need. It's what we like.
Yeah, it's a very defined objective. It certainly suits some armies more than others. More sort of slow, indomitable armies like Marines are going to like that more, whereas Eldar prefer the zip around grab ones. But it's 2 points. It's nice and easy and allows you to plan.
Yeah. And otherwise the objectives stayed relatively the same.
There's a few new ones. There's mission critical objective. You roll a d6 and you have to score that objective number, but if you fight your opponent off there to score it, you get d3. There's area denial, which is keeping guys off the centre.
Oh yeah, there seems to be a lot of off the centre type things going.
No, it's just one. It's just we've had
there's a few in deployment as well.
Oh, okay.
And centre of the board can be awkward to define because it can move. Like 1 or 2 inches, depending on how you measure. Like if you get the angle of your measure slightly off.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing on the Citadel Realm of Battle, at least you've got a centre line, and you can only need to measure 12 inches along that from the nearest section. But if you're playing on a bespoke board, there probably isn't a very clear centre.
Yeah, so that could be interesting. I'm looking forward to trying the quarters of deployment with the 19-inch bubble. That does look like an interesting deployment type.
And that's going to potentially result in some units getting quite close.
Yeah, I mean, with the deployment types as well, we've got 6 different deployment types, which are nice. So we've got the Vanguard Strike, the Dawn of War, and the Hammer and Anvil. But then we got a triangular version of Hammer and Anvil called Spearhead,
Assault.
and a triangular version of Dawn of War for Frontline Assault.
Yeah.
And then we got the Quarters version, which is obviously slightly vanguardy.
9 inches from not within 9 inches of the centre point. It's kind of like the old one where you were in quarters, but you start closer now because you're 9 in the bubble rather than 12.
Yeah, so you're only at minimum you're 18 inches apart.
Assuming your opponent doesn't back away because they know you're playing an assault army. And
that's why at minimum.
Yes. Search and Destroy, that one's called.
But yeah, I mean, how the objectives work, like you're placing objectives, and then the person who places the last objective has to roll for the deployment type we discovered,
and then chooses the zone.
Yeah, and then the person who didn't choose the zone deploys his first unit.
No, I think it's the other way around.
No, yeah, it's person who didn't choose the deployment zone. So if I chose the deployment zone, you would then place the first unit. Yeah,
I think that's right, but it's not really had too much of an effect because very rarely will you have the same number of units in the army, because that's with the deployment now. It's the back and forth deployment.
Yeah, which I'm really happy that's back, because that gives some real strategy to your army. In your list building stage, you can go, okay, I don't want so many drops, so I'm going to make a unit bigger. I'm going to put units in transports.
Or vice versa, you can want lots of drops. You know, if you take lots of cheap units or null drops, things that don't deploy on the board that still take a drop, you can put all them out first. You've not really deployed a lot. You can see where your opponent is and then deploy counter to that.
Yeah, which brings an extra level to your deployment. I mean, yes, last game we played, I was waiting for you to deploy your heavier vehicles, so I knew where to put my Hive Guard.
And I was waiting for you to deploy your Carnifex, so I knew where to deploy my Predator.
Yeah, so that back and forth makes things really, really cool. And it also works well with the way you hold objectives now. So to hold an objective, you have to have more models within 3 inches of the centre of it than your opponent does. Which plays into the hands of hordes really quite nicely, which is nice because we haven't seen hordes being too effective for a long time.
Yeah, Death Star was really key in the previous edition, and now I don't think that's going to be the case
I
at all.
think Death Stars are dead just because there's not the support backup that Death Stars needed to really use. Like, take the iconic one, Screamers of Zinch, with a Herald with the Grimoire and Cursed Earth to give them the +1 invuln.
Yeah, I don't suppose Grimoire's a thing now, is it?
Yeah, the Grimoire's not a thing, Cursed Earth isn't a thing. So, I think Death Stars are gone until someone finds the new one.
Yes, there'll be a way. I mean, I'm already thinking, like, if you get the right characters, because you can't join the unit, but you can still hang around with them, and if you've got, say, the right combination of a Healy character, a buff your attacks character, a Psyker, there's still some power out there, but I don't think it's going to be anything broken and unkillable.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Death Stars were bad for the game, I think. They really were, because it was a case of what's bad for the game is when your opponent can't do anything to hurt you and you're just steamrolling them pointlessly. That's just bad for the game.
Yeah, I'm thinking Centurions with Drago and Tigorus, and they go invisible, and it's like, great, you're invisible, and you've got some other save, and you've got 2+ armor and 2 wounds, and it's just like, yeah, what even is the point anymore? But now there's still going to be stuff that's strong. I just don't think there's going to be anything that is unkillable.
Yeah, so that's covered.
No invisibility anymore.
Yeah, that's covered most of what we think in the rulebook.
Yeah, I mean, there's still so much to explore in this game. There's not so much in this review, but as we go forward, there's so many things to try out. It kind of has been a complete refresh. It's the biggest change to the rules for decades.
Yeah, I'm very happy for the change to the rules, although I now have to go back and refocus all my armies, figure out what's what, because all the points have changed. Going into factions, I'm really happy my Tyranids have gone down in points, although it has made me realise that I've got a lot of Tyranids but not a lot of Tyranids at the same time.
You've got a lot of different units, but not multiples of many of them at all, apart from Flyrants.
Yeah, and Termagants and Harpies, which was the only way to play Tyranids, really. But the most interesting factions, the faction I'm most interested to see, I'm really happy that Tyranids got good. I'm looking forward to see how my Chaos perform.
I'm really looking forward to see Chaos, because although I've never played Chaos, they've always been like my preferred opponent, simply because they're meant to be the ultimate bad guys. You know, I often play the good guys, but for good guys to really be heroic, they need really tough bad guys, and Chaos, fluff-wise, have always been that, but they've just really not been on the table for a decade and a half, and now they might finally really be a challenge.
I say, from what I've seen, Chaos Marines balance out against Space Marines quite nicely. I mean, our Forge Fiends are still crap and more points and stuff like that, but I think going forward I will be able to actually compete with my level. What are you looking at? We're at 39 minutes, mate.
Oh no, yeah, that's cool. Just checking what time it is. Oh yeah, no, that's cool, that's fine. Yeah, so...
Wife doesn't like him being home after midnight.
Well.
He might get grounded.
No, I did some negotiating.
You paid her.
We have a joint
He
account.
he gave her the credit card.
I tell you one thing. I've completely lost my train of thought. I've played my Marines and my Orcs so far. I'm very keen to see how my other factions do. So yeah, we'll definitely be getting some more bat reps up. I think over the next couple of weeks, probably want to try out most of my armies, and then kind of settle on one to focus on getting good with them and learning them, and then move forward.
I think in a few games' time we might set up another Battle of 8.
We might well do.
It's been a while since we've done the Battle of 8 armies, so it'll be a good way to get all of our factions playing, but we want to get all the games certified and with as few rules mistakes as I can.
And we want to know what our stuff does, and find out to what extent our armies are still legal. Like, I might actually have trouble fielding a Battleforged Dark Eldar, because the battalion, which is what you're going to run, I think, a lot of the time, requires 2 HQs, and I've only got 1.
You can do the patrol detachment and then sub in extra detachments,
and then you start running out of command points very quickly.
Yeah, well, there are ways to build your army. I mean, your Dark Eldar, you've got 3 flyers, so you can do a flyer wing detachment.
Oh, I can, can't I? Yes, that'll be fun, actually. The flyers have changed a bit. Like I say, we could talk about every change, but we'd be here all night.
That is one change I would like to cover, is how the armies are constructed.
Yeah.
The force organisation is divided into 8 different charts?
I think it's 8 that are in the book, and then the potential for more going forward.
I think it's after the missions.
I'm not sure. I can't find where they are right now. But it's been implied that as Codexes come out, they may contain specific detachments that are for those particular armies.
So we've got the patrol, which is a tiny detachment, which is a good filler. You don't get any command benefit or extra command points for your stratagems. The battalion is as close to your normal CAS you can get, and brigade is big. You
need to basically fill up a CAD and then some. Yeah,
pretty much. But then you've got the smaller ones. So the Vanguard, where you can have lots of elites. If you're Space Wolves, that's your Champions of Fenris detachment.
Or Eldar player who just loves Aspect Warriors.
Yeah. The Spearhead, if you're Guard, great. Get all your Lehman Russes out, boys.
Oh yes, compulsory 3 heavy support choices.
I'm not sure who would use the Outrider detachment, unless you wanted to play a Guard army with lots of Rough Riders.
White Scars.
Yeah, White Scar bikes. And then you've got the smaller detachments, which in smaller games could really be silly, like the Supreme Command, where you have to have 3 HQ up to 5. Just take 5 Bloodthirsters.
No.
Anyway,
if you're taking multiple Bloodthirsters, you have to take 8.
Yeah, there's... No, I couldn't get 8, unless I took that detachment more than once.
Yeah, take 2 of those detachments, and you get 8 Bloodthirsters.
That is something I did like. They brought in a limit to the amount of detachments you can have per your points value. So above 1,000 to 2,000 points, you can only have 3 detachments. Which stops some of the really broken things going through.
Yeah, stop some cheese, or like an all-flyer army, because you've got the Air Wing detachment where you get a command point for taking 3 to 5 flyers.
Yeah.
Which is the only way you can spam flyers now, because the standard charts only have 2.
I say, so I'm really happy they brought them in, and I'm actually really enjoying them. I mean, there's not much really to say.
I think it's something we're going to have a lot more fun hammering lists out with, once we've had a real chance to get the books into our heads and hammer out some lists.
So, going forward, what's the faction you want to invest in most?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm being very tempted at the moment by the Primaris Marines. I've just knocked a load of Andy's paperwork over. Sorry, Andy. I'm very tempted by the Primaris Marines, but then I think there's also a lot of potential in Eldar.
Yeah, I'd like to see Eldar on the board to see how they play. I'm really enjoying my Tyranids, but I find them a little bit monotonous on the ground poundy level. Because, pushing 80 infantry at least around is hard work.
80? You were packing over 90 in that game last night, mate.
So I'm actually quite looking forward to getting my Chaos out. My Iron Warriors, although I've played them to death, I'm looking forward to seeing how the new Chaos do. And with the Chaos being faction word Chaos, I can bring on all my demons and mix and match.
Yeah, you could certainly do a fun little combo that you might not have thought of before. So, shall we do Eldar Chaos next week then?
Yeah, sounds like a game.
In the past, that would have been very much predicted as an Eldar win, but, everything's changed. We'll have to see how that works out.
So yeah, that'll probably hopefully be the next back wrap up then.
Well, the next back wrap up is the one that I'm still editing at the moment, which is Marines Tyranids. But then I think we could get Eldar Chaos after that.
That sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything that we want to cover there. I don't think there's anything else. I mean, there's
everything else.
There's so much else, but
I mean, they put cities of death from the skies, and planet strike in the main rulebook. Awesome.
Awesome. There are somewhat abridged versions of them, but it's stuff that you'd have previously paid 25-30 quid for a book.
The abridged versions are the best.
So we shall certainly be intrigued to give those a go at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah. Well, I guess if you've watched us for this long, you're probably bored of us ranting.
I don't know. I don't think anyone's bored of it. No, I think people are bored of us.
So yeah, thanks for sticking around, and look forward to the next bat report, I guess.
Yeah, we will have a bat wrap up in the next few days, all going well, and then in about a week's time we get a chance to shoot another one.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's about it. Thanks a lot for watching. Let us know what your thoughts on 8th edition are, and we'll see you guys again soon.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.